Hello, hi Millie. Welcome to my studio at Laundromat.
Hi, Donna. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Come on in. So my name is Donna Ruff. I am here in Laundromat Art Space for about 5 years now. I'm originally from Chicago, but we moved to Miami Beach when I was about 9 years old. And I grew up on Miami Beach and then moved away to New York and Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I came back about 9 years ago and I'm living next door to my old high school. So it's like a full circle kind of thing.
What's your old high school?
Miami Beach High.
Miami Beach High.
Oh, high times.
All right. So tell me about Laundromat a little bit.
Okay, so Laundromat originally was a laundromat, oddly enough, and it was turned into studio space years ago before I was here. When I first got to Miami, I had a studio at Bakehouse. I was there for about 3 years.
That's right, you're a Bakehouse alum.
Right, and I met a lot of artists there, and it was a really nice time. Then there was a big shakeup at Bakehouse. And without going into specifics, I had to leave and I really wanted a bigger studio. And I was very, very lucky to get this space because this is a very big space for Miami.
It is.
And it's somewhat subsidized. So I'm so lucky to have this space. I love it here, love it. And of course we have kind of, cycling group of artists. We have a great group right now. 5 of us women artists won the MIA grant this year. It's a really strong group, and being in a group studio situation is so good for your art practice because especially if you have a lot of respect for the artists, you can kind of bounce ideas off of them. They can help you in many ways, and it's really been great. I love it here.
So so when you come in for a day of work here, do you have any rituals or do you listen to music?
I do not listen to music. That's like one thing that I think I'm a little unusual with artists that way. I don't listen to music. I really like silence, or when I was doing the very labor-intensive work of my newspaper pieces that I'll show you later, I would listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Because I needed like something to kind of pass the time because it's very, like I said, very labor intensive work, and I could stay in one place, so I just would listen to a podcast. What was the other question that you
Well,
had?
what kind of podcast were you?
Well, I happen to love Smart List now, but that wasn't on then. I don't know, things, fresh air, people being interviewed for things. I mean, this was years ago, so there weren't as many podcasts as there are now. But fresh air was the major one probably. I would listen to that.
I love your space and I love your bulletin board. I also have a bulletin board.
Bulletin board's so important. This stuff has traveled with me from Brooklyn to Santa Fe to Miami.
My bulletin board has traveled with me of all my jobs. Same here. And everybody has to comment on the bulletin board at my job.
Really? Well, so this newspaper piece, that is from 2001. That is an aluminum, blind from the World Trade Center that was burnt and hanging from a tree. And I have never forgotten that because it meant so much about archiving the remains of things.
Yes.
And that's a really big thing for me. And also the cutting, just the sort of look of that particular object. You can see the newspaper is really, really yellowed. I mean, it's already like 23 years ago. Wow.
Now, I have to tell you, because I'm a big fan, You had an exhibition last summer at the Deering Estate. It was called Terra Incognito, where you had these very large multi-panel, I believe, photograph silk screens that were printed on this really beautiful bark.
Yes, I have a piece
Is it Bhutanese paper?
Yes, it's from Bhutan.
And it's
And you can see-
absolutely gorgeous. I want to
Yeah.
know how that show came about. Where did you get the idea?
Well, the show came about because I applied for a project residency at Deering.
You were a resident artist there, that's right.
Well, it was a project residency, so because I live in Miami Beach and I hate driving,
Yes.
this is something everybody knows about me, I knew I wasn't going to drive all that way to work every day.
Yeah.
But I was so interested in the place and in the history of it that I got this project residency. So that allowed me to go into their archives to make work specifically about the Deering Estate. And I discovered this, well, this guy is really, like, they have a whole room dedicated to John Coco Small. And I had never heard of him before, because growing up in Miami Beach, I didn't know anything really about what was over the bay. So I was so fascinated by him because he was the chief botanist at the New York Botanical Garden. Of course, I was living in New York for so many years, had never been to the Botanical Garden. And he met Charles Deering. There was a whole group of these guys, David Fairchild and Thomas Edison even, who were so interested in early conservation. And he went all around the South, and particularly Florida and South Florida, to identify plants because he was a botanist and people, this was wild. In fact, the title Terra Incognita came from John Coco Small's description of Florida at that time, unknown land. And so he had identified things. Charles Deering gave him money for his expeditions and so forth. And I went up to New York, went out to the Botanical Garden, went into their archives and talked to their archivists. And so I started to gather all of this information, these images. There's also something called the Florida Memory Project, which has tons of information about Florida. And I was able to download scans of some of his photographs. And then I turned them into silk screens by turning them into a bitmap file and being able to print them like that. Then as far as the show itself, once I started, I applied for Ellie grant, got an Ellie grant.
That's right, congratulations.
Thank you, that was really exciting. I got a nice amount. And so I was able to really expand the project, and I talked to Melissa Diaz, the curator there, and I said, do you think that we can show this work? And she said, yes, we'll put it in the big room. Now, if you go to the Deering Estate and you go in the big room, you see, first of all, it's gigantic. Second of all, it has a coffered ceiling with gold leaf. It has a floor that is checkerboard tile. It has pattern everywhere.
Yeah.
Big fireplace in the middle.
I've seen fireplace in the middle, that's right.
So I thought, oh my God, how am I gonna fill this space? So that's when I decided, okay, I'm going big with this stuff. I'm going to make big prints. And then I came up with the idea of having the middle of it filled with artist books that I made. So that's a whole nother little piece. And let's see.
Do you have any?
I have one of them that I can show you. The prints are actually, two of them are now at the Coral Springs Museum, and the other two are rolled up on that big roll there. So when I went to the Botanical Garden, the archivist told me about this woman, Mary Eaton. And she was actually an employee of the Botanical Garden. And she went along with John Coco Small, and she made illustrations of, botanical illustrations of what they found. Now you see this one is actually named after Charles Deering.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I asked what happened to her. She was a Brit, and, this was all going on in the 1920s. When Roosevelt developed the public work, what was it called? The WPA.
Mm-hmm.
She got fired because her job had to go to an American because they were getting money from the WPA. So she took her work and she went home. Like, I'm taking my marbles and I'm going back to Britain. So there are these images are from a magazine that the Botanical Garden used to put out called the Addisonian. And I was able to download images and, with their permission. In fact, I have a thing in the back here.
This is so stunning.
Published in courtesy of New York Botanical Garden.
Wow. I know, but the paper gave it such an effect.
Yeah.
It gives off almost, it's a sepia or sienna?
No, the ink itself is black.
Black.
Yeah.
But the paper has a very...
Well, the paper is made from bark, so it's bark color.
Bark color.
I guess.
I just love it. It gave it a totally different...
Yeah, I know.
Look.
Paper was interesting to work with. I'm sorry I don't have any of those prints up on the wall. But I can get some out of a folder if you want.
No, that's okay. We're seeing...
The paper itself has so many inclusions in it from the bark.
Yeah, you could tell.
Yeah. So when you print, sometimes there's like a big hole in the image because one of these things will poke through the silk screen.
Incredible.
So this side is a little less. And also they were not exactly rectangular because they're all hand pulled.
Hand pulled, okay.
Without a mold. So they were kind of parallelogram, you know what I mean? So when I pieced them together, it was kind of challenging because they weren't all straight, straight right angles. But that was fine. I often do work like that where I put together pieces. In fact, when I was in grad school, I studied printmaking, and I never was interested in doing editions. What I was interested in is doing a lot of small something and putting it together into a big something.
So you were you were a printmaker.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, when people would ask me what kind of work I do, I would just tell them I do works on paper, because for so long I was really just doing cut paper. I wasn't doing printmaking at all.
Well, I love your copper leaf paintings.
Oh.
I think they're beautiful. They're just gorgeous.
Thank you.
And you work with different materials. What's some of your favorite materials to work with? I'm always curious about your tools.
I really love all kinds of materials. But I like things where my hand is in it.
Yeah.
And actually, thinking about, I was going to mention this to you, the big print being rolled up like that. I was a painter before I went to grad school.
You were?
Yeah.
Because you're an alum. You went to UM.
I went to UM, but I went to Rutgers, Mason Gross School of the Arts for grad school.
For grad school.
When I was at UM, I still was, listening to my mother's voice in my ear telling me that I had to get like a real degree. And
Isn't that what happens to a lot of artists?
yeah. I mean, so I majored in education, I minored in art.
Yeah.
So I was a teacher for a while. And in fact, I've even been a teacher, after grad school, teaching in college. I like
Really?
teaching.
You like
Yeah.
teaching?
Yeah, I do. I like teaching a lot.
Mhm.
But anyway, getting back to the something. So I didn't have room for all these paintings, and so working with paper allows me to store them in rolls. And that was kind of a
I
big
got to
thing.
tell you, that helps because I know artists that work large
Yeah,
and they have serious difficulty finding storage.
yeah.
And maybe some that are work from home are lucky to have a garage, but most don't. It's like, how do you manage?
Well, also, storing art in a garage isn't such a
It's
great
not- it's
thing.
not a great
down
idea.
here. I remember when I heard about Michael Richards and how was it his aunt or his grandmother or somebody saved all his work in their garage. And I thought, wow, they're really lucky that it didn't, get completely destroyed by humidity and stuff over the 20 years since he's been gone.
And in Miami.
In Miami, exactly, yeah. So even so, I still have to have a storage unit. It's just hard. Look at all this stuff,
I gotta get in here.
it's
Look
like
at this.
so much stuff.
You're brilliant because you have the shelf.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, shelf units. No, but this is real. This is real life.
This is real life.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm always buying new materials because I'm always trying new things. So the latest thing that I bought was wax.
Oh, tell me about that.
Jorland's wax medium. So I was waxing paper. And then lately, I've done so much work with the news and with politics and everything for years.
Yeah.
And lately, very recently, because this piece is recent too, but very recently I started just working with landscape and with leaves and like cuttings from the palm trees.
Yes.
So I had some old paper.
Oh,
This is Gampi paper.
that's incredible.
Now, this paper is so expensive. I think it's something like $60 a sheet now. It comes from Japan.
$60.
Yeah, and for a sheet that's about 28 by 40 or something. And it's made by some Japanese master.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I was doing was, see how it's all messed up, because I wanted to put it through the printer, but the printer doesn't really like unless things are really meant for going into the printer.
Right,
And it was
more
like
flat.
making a mess, and I thought, this is hurting my printer, so I'm not sure. So, I mean, we're really jumping around here, but I've just recently gotten this new paper from Japan that is treated for going into the printer. And it prints very nicely. It's got a beautiful surface.
Look at that detail though.
Yes, it's got, yeah, and really,
Oh, wow.
and you can see with the leaves over there. Anyway, getting back to the wax. So I had printed on the Gampi, and then I put wax on it to kind of protect it a little bit and get a little bit more sheen, although the Gampi has a sheen anyway, but it's not meant to go into the printer.
Into the printer.
But so I did a couple of the leaf things on the Japanese paper, and I put wax on it. But here's the thing. It really has such a beautiful surface itself that I feel like I was taking that away. Because even, like you said, the detail is incredible.
It's incredible, my gosh.
Sorry about
And
this
I just
fall
don't
down.
think the camera's gonna do it justice, and I'm sorry to the viewers,
No,
but
that's okay.
it's absolutely
I mean, if you
gorgeous.
see the
Look at
the
this.
shadow, I mean, a friend of mine,
Look at the stem.
I posted this on Instagram, and he said, it's hard to believe that that's not a real leaf. It's
I'm right in front of it,
Yeah.
and I could tell you it is beyond lifelike. Look at this.
But this paper literally comes from Japan. I order it from Owagami Paper
Mm-hmm.
Company, factory, whatever, which makes their own paper. You can even go there and make paper.
You could go there and make
You
paper.
can go there and make paper. It's on this island that's known for paper making in Japan. And I could show you, like, it comes, those Japanese writing, super organized.
Look at that.
So,
They give you samples.
yes, well, you buy them.
You buy them.
So I bought a sample book, which, first of all, this one is the book that shows you the different things with a print on it.
I gotta tell you, I think this is just so cool. I'm like in a candy store.
Yeah, I know, I love this stuff too. And I thought it would take forever to get here, but it didn't, but you have to pay extra for that. It came in a week. So this is the one
Oh,
I'm
look at
using.
that.
This is.
Yeah, you could
Morocco
tell.
Como Kozo Select. This is white, and this is natural. This is the one I'm using. Isn't that gorgeous?
That is so beautiful. It almost seems like silk.
Yeah,
Like this, it seems like fabric,
and it doesn't.
but like a delicate fabric, like something
Right.
that a dress you would find in the 30s or something.
So these are all thicker, but I really like the thin because then I can layer it, and I'm thinking.
Is this a new series that you're working
Yeah,
on?
this is a new series, and it's kind of, I mean, is it different than what I've done before? It's different in the sense that it's very straightforward, and I was thinking of tantric drawings. So tantric drawings are very, very simple. They have usually like one object, one shape in the middle, and they're meant for meditation. So I was at a residency in North Carolina, and I picked up a bunch of leaves from the ground. I think I was afraid I got poison ivy at the same point, but I didn't. But I saw the poison ivy. I was like, oh no, did I touch that? But anyway, I picked up a bunch of dead leaves, and I brought them back, and so I've been scanning them and printing them, and I just love the way they look. So again, though, you see how I'm putting together pieces to make a larger piece. So that's kind of my thing.
How was the residency? Or it's a workshop, no?
No, it was a residency.
It was a residency?
It's a new residency, and I'm not sure how much I can say about it, so I'd have to check with them.
Mhm.
But it's going to be a thing. I was just one of the early people.
And what'd you take from it that it
Well,
just,
at that point, I just needed to clear my head.
and yeah, I think
And
sometimes
I-
artists need that,
Oh,
like they just,
totally. When I did, and we haven't talked about these newspaper things, but I did 3 of these pieces based on the, when Roe was overturned.
overturned, yes.
And that is actually a scan of the front page that I made with cyanotype. Scanned it in,
Mhm.
made a large version, pieced it together. And there's so much kind of angst in the air. And
There still is.
there still is. I worked on getting the petitions for Amendment 4, which is going to be on the ballot after we got 1 million petitions to legalize abortion in Florida.
That's incredible
1
that you've done
million
that, yes.
petitions. Had to be from 14 different counties, couldn't all be from South Florida.
Right.
People want that, so.
It's so odd to me how much it's so popular, how much it's wanted, but I just don't understand how, we're not voting that way, or I don't know, but.
Yeah, well, it's so complicated, but I am of an age when I remember when abortion was illegal, and I lived in Miami at that time. And it's just inconceivable to me that this happened, so.
I just feel
Very,
like
very
so much progress
disturbing.
and we're going backwards.
Going backwards, yeah. So anyway, I was full of, kind of fury, not really, because I'm not like somebody who's like that. But I internalized a lot of that. So this week was only a week, and I was in the middle of the countryside, and it was beautiful, and there were goats, and it was just chill. And that's what I really needed. So when I came back, I decided to kind of go with that feeling of beautiful things that you might want to look at
Yeah.
and things that are around us. And as I posted on an Instagram post, when I posted that piece, and I said, when my granddaughter was little, she would be so curious about everything on the ground. She would just find all these funny little things.
Well, you find pennies, shells,
Well,
flowers,
even
anything.
like, yeah, weird things.
Weird things, yeah.
And I always love that, you know, the thing that Casa said, you know, being like the mind of a child, you know, I've learned from her about curiosity. And
Can
I
you
really-
imagine that moment of that sense of just looking,
Yeah, well, that's it.
just looking?
Right, because we are just going from A to B and A, you know, and C and D, and this is what I have to do today, and I'm checking this off my list, and, you know, so getting back to the tantric drawings, I thought, well, what if I had these leaves that are in the process of dying, really, or they're dead, actually, and yet there's so much beauty, and it kind of also feeds my interest in negative space because they're, you know, there are holes in them, and so, you know, that's kind of where I got to where I am right now. And then when I ordered the paper, I just loved it so much. So I thought, okay, this is what I'm gonna do.
Right. They're just incredible in person, and they look beautiful in images too, but when you see them in person, you can't, they just look so lifelike.
Yeah, amazing.
It's really amazing. Is
So-
this your new project back here then? With you
Yeah.
working now?
So this, well, this is done. I did 3 of them and that's all. The other 2 were on that roll over there. One of them was in a show that Lisa Rockford curated called Autonomous.
Mhm.
And it was about women's rights and stuff like that. Not this one, but one that's sort of more red and blue. And I would take this down at this point because I need the wall space.
You have this incredible wall right here
I know,
for
it's really
display.
like, yeah,
Yeah. No, but I mean, you need it.
I need it. There's never enough wall space.
There's never enough wall space.
So this work is going to be shown in September into October, in the little gallery that FIU has in Lincoln Road, where it's actually facing,
Miami Beach Urban
Washington.
Studios, yeah.
and
They
this-
have such a great space there.
well, you know, they don't have the upstairs space anymore. They only have this little storefront.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like a long, skinny
So
space,
it's, right.
which is fine. I met with them a couple of weeks ago, and work is going to look great in there. So I'm going to be having 6 of these on little shelves, and then these, and there are a lot more. It's a much bigger.
How'd you come
series.
up with this idea? Because it looked like torn
Well,
photographs?
so I want to talk about what happened during the pandemic to me. Okay?
Every artist has talked
Every
about that.
artist yes. I know,
Because hey, it's important, and
totally.
how do artists make art
Yeah.
in the middle of that, of the
Well,
pandemic?
the-
How was the experience for you?
The good thing about artists is that we're by ourselves all the time anyway. So
That's true.
So that isolation was not as horrific. But what was really upsetting was not being able to come to the studio, because we have a lot of artists here, and at that time, I mean, I have a special sort of health issue that I had to be careful. And so being at home, I was thinking, what am I going to do with my time here? So I came up with a few different things. One of the things I did early on was I made this little book, Year
Let's
of
see.
Isolation.
That's right.
So I took an online class in I can't remember the name of the course, but it was about the Book of Hours by, you know, the medieval Book of Hours.
Mhm.
So the Book of Hours was actually a calendar, and it was illustrated with these beautiful illustrations, and it kept track of the time. So I thought, well, what can I do to kind of keep track of this time? Because this is really something to kind of bookmark. And so I made this little book. I'm always working with these Japanese accordion books. And
Do you like making artist books?
I do. I love making artist books. So what it is kind of the days of the week. And each day I would blacken
look at
a
that.
square.
And you have the dates.
So it started out March 13th. I remember it was a Friday. I had a hair cutting appointment. My doctor said to me, go to the appointment and then don't go out again.
Because that, I mean,
That was the
hey,
day.
I went out.
You did.
I'm kidding. You know how desperate we are with our hair.
Yeah, no, but I did. I went because I thought, well, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to be able to do it. So I had a haircut and then I stayed home. So each day I would blacken
Oh my
in
gosh, look at
another
that.
square.
Yeah.
And then I kept track of which day. So just,
That's
you know, each day
incredible.
going to a different square.
Yeah.
So this is my version of Book of Hours. And it's pretty long.
I can see. Oh my gosh.
I've made
That was
books,
such a time, Jesus.
I've made books with these. They're really pretty, but they're so long, it's very hard to show them in the show because they're like 90 inches long. So usually.
So you were able to still create, but at home.
Oh, yeah. I also did these wacky sort of hole drawings. And then I offered them on Instagram for sale to benefit the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Mm-hmm.
So people bought them for $100, and then I gave the $100 to Southern Poverty
That's
Law Center.
incredible.
And that made me feel better, you know, because I was just really feeling, as we all were,
Helpless,
helpless,
useless. You don't know what you're
alone. I
doing.
live
Yeah.
by myself with the dog, and you know, so I couldn't even be with my kids. So anyway, so here I am at home. Now I'm going to segue into this. Viewers, I really am kind of a very, you know, straightforward person. We're going all over the place
You're
here.
giving us gems. What are you talking? This is incredible.
So here's where this came from. When I moved from Brooklyn to Santa Fe, first of all, I get the New York Times print edition every day, and I have for 40 years, okay, no matter where I live.
Where you keep the print edition. I'm
Yes.
online. I
And
have
most
the app.
people are online. I keep the print edition. Here's the proof.
I gotta tell you, I love that because it's a totally different feeling you get when you touch it
Absolutely.
in your hands.
Yeah.
And just like books, I prefer the book, the real deal.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that when you're online, when you have the digital version, they're curating it for you, so you're not seeing the whole thing.
Right.
Whereas if you have the print edition, you kind of flip through and you go, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that about, you know, such and so in Mexico or whatever.
Yeah, that's
So,
such a good point.
yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, so I had wrapped my dishes in the newspaper. And then when I was unpacking in Santa Fe, I was flattening them out and putting them on the ground to recycle. And in Santa Fe, of course, New Mexico, the light is super bright. So I see the light shining on this pile of newspapers, and it was making these really harsh, you know, light and dark. So I took a bunch of photographs of them, and I thought, I don't know if I'm ever going to do anything with this, but it just seems like something I want. So during the pandemic, so that was in 2010, okay? During the pandemic, I'm looking on my computer and I see this folder with these photographs. And I thought, well, here's something. I can do something with it. So I started printing them out. And then I started cutting them up. And then I started putting them together into these collages. So that's where that came from.
And I think this is why I'm such a big fan of your work, because I also really love collage.
Uh-huh.
It's my favorite medium because of all the symbolism it could hold.
Yeah.
The way you could put anything together, whether it's a piece of flower, a piece of a letter,
Right.
and just put something really remarkable on it.
And
That's
when
like
you put things together, the meaning changes.
everything. Yes.
Yeah. And in this case, there are bits of content here, but it's also about architecture, and it's about lights and darks, and it's about shapes, and it's about, sort of objects.
What I love is that when you look at it at a different angle, you get something completely new from it.
Well, also, it's very, very different from what I had done for so many years that I was worried that in my gallery and little galleries that they'd be like, what is this? I can't sell this. And one of them actually, well, let's not go there, but, I had worked on these cut newspaper
I remember
pieces
these. I
for
love
years.
these.
I mean, I did those for 10 years, Billy.
They're so gorgeous.
I
They're
know,
so
they're
gorgeous.
They're very beautiful. This one I happen to have because it was sent back from a show. And the rest of my, a lot of my gallery has, but you see, this is when Lou Reed died,
That's right.
and there he is down there. So this one is called, I give them the names of just the dates to kind of keep it neutral, but this one is called 10/28/13.
13.
Homage to Lou.
So usually the title is the date of the newspaper.
Yeah, the title is the date of the newspaper.
And these
So this is part of this
series.
series. What I did was I zoomed in on newspaper photographs from the print edition to get this kind of Ben-Day dot thing. And so a few of them are not from the original sort of pile of newspapers. Once I started going down that road, I thought, well, let me get some color going on in here. So I started taking photographs from the, photographs of the.
I gotta tell you, it almost seems like jean fabric to me.
Yeah. Well,
That is
also,
so cool.
something that somebody pointed out to me who came to visit, pointed out that, well, actually, she was talking about the preprints for Deering,
Mm-hmm.
which are made with the same way newspapers are, by making them into dots
Yeah,
to create the halftones.
right.
So there's kind of a thread that goes through my work, even though I do all these different things, there's a real thread going through it. And I mean, I think you need to kind of look a little further, like this person did this, and this, and this, and this. But I can't seem to be, I just couldn't do newspaper pieces anymore. I felt like I had done everything or said everything that I could say with those. And specifically, they were during a period of time when there was a migrant crisis in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a cohesion to them because most of them were about the migrants. And the patterning is kind of Islamic patterning, and so that was harmonious with that too. But now I feel like I would just be repeating myself or whatever. So I felt like I needed to move on.
Do you normally work on multiple projects, or once you're done with a particular project, you just put it away and do you search for something new, let's say, to work on?
I don't put it away. I don't put things away and, say, okay, that's done.
Yeah.
Because there's some times where I want to go back to that. And
So you do revisit.
I do. Oh, yeah, I totally do. And I guess I'm kind of like a restless sort of person, so I can't be kind of coming in and just doing the same thing every day. But at the same time, when I get into, this is the beauty of being an artist, in my opinion. Something interests you and you want to explore it. And that's the way I am. And I have my own way of doing that. If I'm printing a leaf, I'm cutting it into pieces and putting it, into a larger piece. This thing I dug out. This thing I did when I was at the bakehouse. So this is also Japanese paper, but it's thicker. I got this from a place in LA that sells.
It's shimmery.
Yeah, well, so this is photographs of water, like ocean pictures. And then I use this stuff from Golden Acrylics. They have all these wacky things that you can work with. So this is, has mica in it.
Oh,
And then I would put it on.
oh, that's where I see the
Yeah,
shimmer.
yeah. So I put it on with a squeegee, so it kind of is irregular. And then I folded it. So these things actually were, like this.
Yeah.
But I happened to dig it out the other day and I thought, well, you know what? I like that thing. Why don't I do more of those?
Who are your favorite artists, and like who has made an impact on you and your work?
Okay, well, I look at art all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do. When I was in grad school, I think that I would say first would be Kiki Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes into the printmaking also, because she was a big printmaker and she would do these
Very large.
big prints.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe that's where I got the idea to piece them together, actually, if I think back on it, because that's what she would do.
Mm-hmm.
And also, she just hung them on the wall. She didn't put them in frames. And that's a big thing to me, that I like the work to be immediate. If you
Well,
put it in a frame, you
some work
lose
really
that.
doesn't belong in a frame.
Well,
yeah.
some work doesn't.
Some work does and some really
Right.
doesn't. Yeah.
And then the other person is Leslie Dill,
Mm-hmm.
who also, her work is not in frames and is well, she's done a lot of different things, but the small paper pieces that she's done, I know somebody who owns a couple of them and they are not in frames and they're very delicate.
Can you how do you normally install that?
Well,
Just backstory for students that may want to know. Like,
yeah, well, usually it's installed, if it's in a museum or a gallery, it's installed with magnets.
Magnets, yeah.
Yeah. And you can see here that I'm trying to not make holes. I mean, when I put the push pin in, it's in a place that's outside of the image. So I'm trying to not make holes.
So yeah, because what happens is that you put a hole on the actual piece.
Yeah, if you put a hole in the piece and it's not going away.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I've seen things where artists have, famous artists, and their drawings are framed, and you see all kinds of holes and stuff, and tears, and, stuff that's not supposed to be there.
Right.
But these have such a purity to them, I kind of feel like the hole would be distracting.
It would be distracting, that's right.
I have a box of these little fasteners. This is just a brad, remember, like you had these in school?
But
it's
these,
a
I
tiny
haven't
one.
seen these in so long.
I know, I have a whole box of them now.
Well, but actually this really does work.
Yeah. Yeah, so when I just did that yesterday because this kept falling off, and I thought, oh, I know, I got that box of brads back there. Let me see how that looks. So
So you find that you're constantly
keep posted,
experimenting.
because that could enter into, because I'm really thinking of layering it. I'm sorry. What were
So you
saying?
do experiment in terms
Oh,
of
yeah.
how you would place.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But my gallery in New York, he won't show the work that's not framed.
Really? So what's behind that? Is that just because it's easier to sell if it has a
Yeah,
frame?
because it's easier
It's
to
to sell.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's more professional, and, I think that's the reason. The big prints on that art paper they're not delicate. That stuff is like it's like a textile.
Right.
So to me, like, I don't see, and they've been shown without frames. In Coral Springs, she has them kind of away from the wall, and they're just kind of floating.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic, love it. So, it's a difference of opinion.
My God, yeah. So I have to ask this.
Yeah.
I want to know, as an artist, what's your main advice for students? Is there something that you know now that you weren't told then, that you wish you were told?
Oh, there's
Like
so
the good and the
much.
bad and the ugly. That's what I'm asking.
There's so much I wish I would have been told, but maybe it would have discouraged me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is not an easy gig.
It's not an easy business. No.
So you have to really, well, I'm gonna say a couple of things. First of all, it's very different now than even 20 years ago when I got my MFA. And even 10, 15 years ago when I was teaching in college, it was very different. There was no such thing as influencers and Instagram and all that sort of thing. now you've got a lot of people who just want to make work and get it out there.
Yeah.
And they have this kind of built-in audience on Instagram. So there's a sense of having some success just because people are giving them likes.
Well, because you're Instagram famous, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that that applies to real life.
Well, right. I mean, if it's very, very hard to actually live on the income of an artist. I think that I saw,
No, you
something like
can't.
maybe 5% of
No.
artists.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to get a job
Yeah.
unless you're,
I think that
Trust
many
fund,
young
baby.
artists don't want to hear that. They don't want to
No.
hear that you have to get a job and but it's not something that falls magically into place. Like,
Right. Well, I used to tell my students to be open to possibilities. And here's something really interesting, and I think that this comes from sort of having some history. First of all, when I was when I was a young single mom, I was an illustrator. And in fact, I brought in
I was going to ask you this. He's on the table.
I brought this from home. So this is me. This was
This is
my
your
most,
book.
This is my most successful book because this book actually, one of my
Oh, look at
illustrations
this.
was chosen for the Society of Illustrators, which was a big deal. And
this
it's
is
actually been
incredible.
digitized. So you can buy this online. And I get this tiny little royalty, like every once in a while I get like $2.
This is so amazing.
And my son always makes fun of me and going, he says something about, Alan Lee. Anyway, this was the image that was at the Society of Illustrators. So I did this for 20 years.
You really?
And I have to tell you, it was dreamy because here I was, I obviously draw well, right? And I
Yeah.
love to draw. And here I was getting paid to draw. So I
Actually getting paid to do what you're good at, what you love.
getting paid to do what I love. And for many years, probably 6 years, I did all the cosmetics illustrations for Lord & Taylor. So at that time, Lord & Taylor all their ads were illustration, no photography. When I got the call from them, and I was trying to remember this morning how they even found me, because I was in New York and there were a zillion illustrators. And I don't remember how they found me, but I remember where I was when I got the call from the art director. And she asked me to come in. And I thought, oh my God, this is big. And it was, because I get paid $1,000 for a full page ad that took me 2 days to do.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, but those days are over.
What made you stop finally? You were just.
Well, the business was changing. I mean, now, first of all, you don't get paid anything like you did back then.
Right.
There are stock images in illustration.
And now it's something that I feel very terrible. I feel so bad for graphic designers is AI.
Yeah. Yeah. And even illustrators, their style is being copied. It's really a problem. But it's much harder to make a living at that now. But my point is, there are many ways to make money and still do what you love. So when I went to grad school, I would say there were a few artists that went on to become pretty well known. Small percentage. The rest of them, though, found ways to put their talent into something else. And I have one friend, and I think she's the great success story. So she's younger than me. Right now, she's living in the Netherlands. She was in Amsterdam, now she's in Rotterdam. Anyway, she was always interested in embroidery and textiles and patterns and other cultures. And it took her a long time, but she put together a practice where she takes people to Transylvania or to places where they have this very strong embroidery and textile kind of practice.
Uh-huh.
And she is very successful at it. So And I remember when she was first starting out, she was saying, oh, maybe I should take this, museum job. It doesn't pay very much, but what I'd really like to do is this other thing. And it took her some years, but she's really successful. And so that kind of thing, like, be open to what you really love and how you can put that to work for you.
How you could continue to do it and still be able to pay your bills.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think the important thing is to keep your mind open to possibilities and don't think of it as less than,
Mm-hmm.
because you're still using your talent and there's still a lot of, satisfaction in using your talent and doing something that's unique to you. So I would tell students that story,
Mm-hmm.
to just keep your mind open. I just did an interview and they asked me, what would you tell artists? And one of the things I said was to be kind and be generous.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, we are so narcissistic artists, right? I mean, let's be honest. And I think younger artists, particularly, especially when they have a big, Instagram following or whatever, they get kind of full of themselves and
Yeah.
they don't think it's important to listen to other people or to learn from anybody else or to
It's
give
so
back.
funny. Yeah, it's so funny that you just said that because I've heard young people say, "Oh, I don't follow artists. I don't have a favorite artist."
That's
I'm like, you
nuts.
don't look at,
Yeah, that is.
how could
nuts.
you not look at people's work?
Right.
How could you not want to know what other artists are doing or at least see it? It's like, no, it's distracting. I don't look at other artists' work. I'm not interested. I'm like, well,
Well, I would strongly discourage that.
no, you got
Because
to.
You never stop learning. How
No.
could you possibly know it all? You're 22 and you think you know it all?
Yeah.
Boy, you got something, you're gonna have some big disappointments in
Immigrants
life.
in life. No. I think sometimes you have this, when you're young, you have these expectations and they kind of fall short and you get discouraged, but
That's a way to set yourself up for disappointment, no joke.
yeah,
Because you really have to be part of the community. That's the reality of life.
yeah,
You can't do it all on your own. And you learn, look at other stuff and you think, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll do, fill in the blank, whatever.
right. Donna, I want to thank you so much for having me over and showing me your space. I had such a great time. Thank you, thank you. And I'm going to leave Donna's information down in the description. If you want to learn more about her work and her current projects, you could contact her. Thank you so much.
Oh, Millie, it's been a pleasure. And you know how we narcissists love to talk about it, so.
No.
But, I mean, it's really generous, this project that you're doing, and I look forward to seeing, I've already watched 2 of them, and I look forward to seeing more.
Thank you so much. And I have to
You're
say,
you're so generous with your time, and that's really great.
no, thank you. You guys are giving me time. And I have to say I've been very lucky because all the artists have been fabulous. And most importantly, they've been very kind people. And I'm forever grateful.
This community is full of people who are so talented and so smart,
Yes.
and it's changed so much, in the last few years. It really is a serious art venue now, it's just full of great people. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hope you're welcome.
Bye.